Essentially, these fresh Epstein emails that were leaked yesterday seem to be more about what Trump knew rather than anything he actually did. I've got the two key quotes here. Epstein writes, of course he, Trump, knew about the girls. He means the girls trafficked for sex. And he also says that Trump, quote, spent hours with one victim at Epstein's house, and we can only speculate what he was doing during those hours. But layer by layer, we seem to be getting closer to the truth, don't we?
Well, look, I think that with Donald Trump, people have thrown absolutely everything at him. So even though I'm sure he knew a lot about what was going on, I'm sure that, I don't know whether he's guilty of any crimes or anything like that, but it seems to me that he's completely immune from any of the criticism because so much has been thrown at him and he's still there. Yeah. So I wonder how politically significant these new so-called revelations will be. I mean, there's a lot already baked in about Trump. We know that he was very good friends with Epstein. He sent purportedly him messages on his birthday, on his 50th birthday, although Trump denies this. Yeah. But I don't see how...
Not just denies it, but is suing.
He's suing. Well, he always sues everything. But I think it's very unlikely, actually, that the new revelations, as far as I'm concerned, will do much damage.
Teflon Trump.
That kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, and also there's no smoking gun yet. I mean, one of the first exchanges of emails between Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell released, dated back in 2011, Epstein wrote, I want you to realise that the dog that hasn't barked is Trump. And then the redacted name of a victim spent hours at my house with him. He has never once been mentioned, police chief, etc. Maxwell responds, I have been thinking about that. But then the White House unredacted the name, said it was Virginia Giuffre, and said she never made any complaint about him. In fact, she was always positive about him.
So I think I'd probably take a step back from this and I'd probably move it from, you know, what's the game about sort of Trump here and who's using this to weaponise this against Trump. I think everything should be released. And I think anybody who had any association with Jeffrey Epstein has to come forward and tell people what they knew, because we are talking about kind of a sort of an industrial scale level of sex grooming and sex abuse. And this, I don't believe it was just Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. But there were powerful men at the top of every major discipline, politics, business, you know, whatever, involved in all of this. And also the toll that this abuse takes on women. You know, I interviewed and did some work with some of the survivors of the, you know, the Asian grooming gang scandal. Similarly, these, you know, women who were involved with Jeffrey Epstein. It casts a long tail on these women's lives. Virginia Giuffre, you know, took her life in the end. I just think release these, because these are some emails, release everything.
So, look, I think that Aisha's right in that people should come forward, but I don't think they will. I mean, look what happened to Andrew. He did exactly what you suggested. He tried to come forward and clear the air.
No, but he didn't cooperate. He didn't cooperate with the FBI. He didn't cooperate.
No, but the interview he
came
did.
Forward with
he came forward.
Yeah, he said he didn't swear.
He came forward with dishonesty.
No, but it was a disaster. And I think people looking at that, the powerful people that you're talking about...
But go and talk to the authorities.
Will look at that and say, why on earth would I volunteer myself to go forward and talk about...
But Aisha, you're talking about the right thing, but it's not a likely thing.
No.
But until the authorities actually come for these individuals.
That is why they should release all the information. And now that this, let's hope this shutdown has stopped in America, hopefully, you know, their parliament will resume. This new woman, this new Democrat will take her place, and there could be a vote on this, and she could have an important vote, so the files could be released.
Some of the other emails that were released yesterday show a conversation between Epstein and his sort of media advisor, a journalist, Wolf he's called. And he was advising Trump. Basically, he was saying, you've got the goods... Sorry, he was advising Epstein. You've kind of got the goods on Trump, and it's up to you what you do with it. You can either go public with it and destroy him, or you can kind of cover for him, and then he'll be, as the next president, he'll be in your debt.
Yeah.
Your call. Now, that implies that there are emails to come out which are dynamite. If they are that powerful that they could destroy Trump's reputation, and that's difficult to do. As you said, he's Teflon coated.
I mean, look, he started running for president in 2015. That's 10 years in which people have thrown everything at him. I'm not condoning him. I'm not saying he's a good guy. I'm saying that he's had everything thrown at him, and he's still there. And I wonder whether this new information will do him any damage. And also, the way it is that it's so polarised that the more he's attacked, the more his base seem to like him.
Should we have a listen to what Caroline Leavitt said at the White House?
These emails prove absolutely nothing other than the fact that President Trump did nothing wrong. And what President Trump has always said is that he was from Palm Beach, and so was Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein was a member at Mar-a-Lago until President Trump kicked him out because Jeffrey Epstein was a pedophile and he was a creep.
So, denials.
Absolute denials. But look, you know, sunlight is the best disinfectant. Let's see all these files. And by the way, I'm just, you know, I think Donald Trump is a slight red herring.
Sure.
There are lots of other names.
That's right.
And I think that is the thing that will be incredibly interesting. I do not buy that there were just two people involved in this.
No. Let's talk about Andrew then. He's mentioned in the emails released yesterday. Now, we know from the interview on Newsnight that Andrew lied through his teeth, basically. Sure. He said that he'd cut off all contact with Epstein in 2010, and in fact, he carried on emailing him and contacted him in detail. He entered into a conspiracy after he said that he'd broken off with Epstein to smear Virginia Giuffre's name, swapping all kinds of personal information about her. And yet in the interview, he denied having any knowledge of her. And he also tried to imply that the photograph, which I think we can probably see now, of his arm around Giuffre's waist, could have been fraudulent, could have been a forgery. The Daily Mail, which first published that photograph, have come up with conclusive scientific evidence to show that it's not a fake, it's the real thing. And if that needed endorsing, it comes through the email yesterday, where Epstein says, yes, she, meaning Giuffre, had her picture taken with Andrew, as did many of my employees. So he is saying that the picture's genuine. That leaves Andrew in an even worse position if it was possible.
Look, I think Andrew, exactly. I mean, if that were possible, I think Andrew is being completely discredited. And it was the lying, actually, that did him the most damage.
That's what got him basically ejected from the royal family.
That's right. So I think he's kind of at a rock bottom. And again, I don't see any more information making his position worse, because he's in the worst position he could be.
Well, he's not going to come forward, is he? Because he would be at risk of prejudicing his position.
That's right. And also, he did before. I mean, you're making a distinction between the legal process and him doing an interview. But it's the same sort of thing. I mean, they're implicating, you know, they're implying themselves. They're essentially admitting wrongdoing, people might think. So why would they do that?
In the emails released, he has emailed Ghislaine Maxwell, hey there, what's all this? I don't know anything about this. You must say so, please. This has nothing to do with me. I can't take any more of this. I mean, clearly knew he was under pressure.
Absolutely, and rightly so. I mean, look, I mean, he denies all the allegations, but why was that money paid to Virginia Giuffre? Why will he not speak to anybody? I mean, that's not, as Richard said, why did he go and lie on national television about all of this? But I think when you kind of take a step back and you look at this story in the round, this is not just a story about, you know, Prince Andrew or, you know, Jeffrey Epstein. This is a story about how these incredibly rich, powerful men thought they could just act with impunity, these kind of masters of the universe. I mean, we're talking, I think when the full names, if they ever come out, I think we will be so shocked at some of the names who are involved in this.
But that goes to the part of what you just said about powerful people. I mean, that's the problem that Andrew had, was that he was, not through any skill of his own, I mean, he had inherited a position, and it looked as if he was abusing that position and the friendship he had. And clearly Epstein was trying to use this stuff against these people. I mean, you made the point about the Trump. I mean, he was trying to hold power over them.
Aisha makes a really good point. I mean, we don't know exactly how many victims there were. It could be hundreds, could be up to 1,000, as some speculate. It must be exhausting, emotionally exhausting, if you're one of those women. Because, of course, the release of these emails means that perhaps you might, you know, information about your own life and experience might come out. You might not want that to come out.
Absolutely. And I interviewed the brother of Virginia Giuffre, and I was so moved about, obviously, the huge toll it had taken on her life. And I think when women have been abused as girls, it can affect them in terms of the rest of their lives, the choices they make. And
they're not in control of this release of this information.
These are, I think, the bravery of these women. Take someone like Virginia Giuffre. She's just an ordinary girl. She's in this horrendous situation. She takes on not only a really rich, powerful man like Jeffrey Epstein, she takes on, like, the royal family. She is taking on some of the most powerful men and institutions and families and elites on the planet. The toll of that is huge. For these
Meanwhile, the clock continues to tick for the BBC. By my reckoning, they've got about 39 and a quarter hours to respond to Trump's lawyer's deadline of 10 o'clock tomorrow night. We read in the Telegraph and other papers this morning, but as usual, the Telegraph's leading on this story, or leading the story, that the BBC are going to make a direct apology to Trump. They're going to contact him directly and say, sorry, we screwed up.
I think they have to do that because he says he's going to sue them. He will sue them. I mean, he does that all the time. That's what he does almost for a living. And then the whole story will drag on and on and on and on, and it'll be a soap opera which they won't be able to...
Do you think an apology will be enough, or do you think they have to throw a bit of money at it as well?
No, I think an apology... Because he said, if you don't apologise, I will sue you.
Right.
So
Yeah, but he also wanted compensation as part of the deal.
Yeah, so I don't know. I suspect he will just take the apology and then he'll wave that around and say, hey, look, they apologised.
And I think he'll also want some kind of broadcast, maybe at the head of the 6 o'clock news or at the head of the 10 o'clock news.
Yeah, it'll be some...
A 15, 20-second
I mean, he loves...
statement.
What he loves is humiliating his enemies, essentially.
Grinding
so he'll want them to... You know, he'll want to sort of screw their faces in the dust. But we'll just have to wait and see.
It's interesting, Aisha, because we understood that earlier this week that the legal advice was it's OK, you know, you could fight this. The BBC could sort of stick it out. But the trouble is, Kwasi's point is Trump doesn't like losing, so it probably could have made it worse if they'd done that and gone into battle.
I think there's definitely...
What would you have advised them?
I think there's definitely an argument that, you know, it would be hard for him to sort of actually get across the line on a defamation case. But you could only fight that if you were really coming from a position of strength, and the BBC is not in a position of strength right now. And I do totally agree with Kwasi in the sense that I think what Trump will want is for him to be able to pop up at the beginning of the BBC for like 10 minutes and do a kind of monologue to the British public about how terrible this organisation is and how great he is. Look, I think I'm a big defender of the BBC. I think the BBC is so part of our DNA as a country, but I think the BBC really, really messed up on this and some other things. As a basic journalist, you know that's something that you shouldn't do. But it also doesn't sit well with me that a lot of people who are against the BBC are kind of wanting to sort of use this to tear down the BBC. But the BBC messed up and has got to do better.
And also the BBC, I mean, in terms of the court case, I mean, who's going to pay for that? That's going to be public money.
Oh, it's us.
And then that's going to be a huge... They want to shut this down as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Something which is really always gets our viewers going, gets the public going generally, is the question of what to do with Shamima Begum, who we interviewed on this programme a few years ago at her camp in Syria. It's been recommended by an independent commission looking into terrorism and counter-terrorism that she should come home.
Sure.
That we should bring her home, maybe put her on trial, maybe send her to jail, but we need to get her out of the camp. She was only a 15-year-old schoolgirl when she went there, and it's time to bring her back. I can't see a single message on this from people watching agreeing with that. They hate.
Oh no, I can.
Oh, can you?
Oh yeah, we've got a number of comments saying that she should be allowed.
Yeah, but it'll be 9 to 1. I mean, 9 to 1 again.
Well, I'm not sure you're right, but anyway, Mick says she's British. The age at which she was radicalised and left the country is not enough for her to be deprived of her nationality. Sue says, I do believe it's time to reconsider, please, to return Shamima Begum. James, of course she should be allowed to return. She was a child when she was radicalised. You're right. There are lots of people who think, no, she should be responsible.
Well,
she was 15 years old. She knew what she was doing. But she was a child.
Yeah, but look, whatever the rights and wrongs are of this, I don't think there's any way politically that this government is going to allow her to come back, because I think the sentiment generally is very strongly against her.
We're running a poll, by the way, and at the moment it's 88% of our viewers are saying she shouldn't.
So you're right,
So 88% are saying she shouldn't. The government's on what, 19% in the polls, 20%, whatever? They're not going to bring her back.
Should we hear from her? How long ago was it that we spoke to her? It was about 3 years, 4 years?
We'll find out, because there'll be a date on this interview with her.
I am asking the British people to forgive me because I made a mistake at a very young age. You know, most young people don't know what they want to do with their lives, and they are very confused, and they can easily fall into things like this. And I know it's very hard for the British people to try and forgive me because, you know, they've lived in fear of ISIS. They've lost loved ones because of ISIS, but I also have lived in fear of ISIS, and I also have lost loved ones because of ISIS. Honestly, the only crime I think I committed was being dumb enough to come to ISIS. And even that can be refuted because I was 15 when I came. And you can't, you know, judge a 15-year-old for making a mistake.
She said in the same interview that she was absolutely prepared to be put on trial here and absolutely prepared to go to prison for whatever term it was decided she needed to serve for what she'd done, because there are allegations that she was more directly involved in horrible actions out there. What do we think about the fundamental point that when she was radicalised online, which is a whole issue in itself, she was only 15? She was 15 when she was radicalised online. She made a terrible error of judgment. Out she went, got sucked into the whole ISIS way of life and death. But she was only 15.
OK, so I've got a slightly more nuanced view on this. I don't buy into, as probably some people from my wing of politics, that she is just some victim in this. I do think when you're 15, you have a sense of right and wrong. However, I think, and I think... I don't quite buy her plea that I watched that interview. I think I did some commentary after. It was an amazing interview that you guys got. I don't quite buy the sort of PR, right? However, I do think she should be brought back because she is a British citizen. I don't think we can have one rule for some British citizens and another rule. I believe in parity. If you're a British citizen, you're a British citizen, and you should be brought back. I think she should be tried for the crimes that she's committed, and she should stand trial and face the full force of the law. I would feel nervous about her coming back because I think she is quite a dangerous person, so I do accept that.
But you think she's still dangerous?
I think she could be.
Well, she could be,
yeah,
but I think she needs to be de-radicalised if she comes back. The most important thing, though, is I think we need to learn from her. Why did a young British girl get radicalised? How did she get groomed? Because this will still be happening in bedrooms all up and down the country, young men and young women, because I think this report, and I know you're going to be speaking to Baroness Farsi later, who's done a lot of work on this.
Well, she's behind this.
She is, absolutely. So but their radicalisation of young people is a huge issue in this country, whether it's on the far right, whether it's Islamist radicalisation. We have to understand what happened to Shamima Begum, and I think it's not. I don't think we can just leave her there. And other countries are bringing back.
I think you've got to make the case that most people feel. I think this is she was 15, which doesn't mean she was a child. I mean, she had agency.
Well, under 16 is a child.
No, but technically, but in terms of values, the fear is that someone who does something like that is so antithetical to British values that bringing her back is a threat, constitutes a threat. We don't know whether she's been de-radicalised. I wasn't very convinced by that interview. She's not only a threat, and also there's a degree of punishment. The people feeling is, if you don't like this country, if you think that you're so anti the West that you go to live with ISIS, you have a family there. She lived there. She was 15 when she went there, but she lived there for many years.
She had children there.
And she had children there. And people said, well, you clearly don't share our values.
British.
Why should you come back?
But the problem is...
It's a values point.
But the problem is then, why should we then send back people that committed crimes in this country? If somebody commits a crime in this country...
Well, the thing is, if a British citizen had done the same thing here, we wouldn't then deport them to another country.
Yeah, but she left the country.
But we are making that argument, actually. We are saying that we shouldn't be having foreign criminals languishing.
Yeah, I'm talking about... She wasn't a foreign criminal.
But
she's British.
That's the point I'm making.
So why should we bring her back? She's a criminal. She hates British values. She was part of a group of beheaded people. But why... She's abroad.
But if
she
was British and had done the same thing at 15 here...
Yeah, but they haven't left the country.
Her on trial.
No, but the fundamental difference is that this lady, age 15, chose to leave the country and join a sect, a group that was profoundly anti-Western, anti-British values.
Yeah.
They were beheading people.
So
then the argument is, well, if she's there, why bring her back?
Well, let's look
why doesn't she stay there?
At the moment, she's in essentially a transit camp. At some stage, that camp's going to be shut down. It's not going to stay open forever. What do you think should or is going to happen to her if we don't bring her back here and put her through the justice system?
You know what? A lot of people will say, we don't care. As long as she's not here, you know, they can deal with her.
Look, that is a very populist argument. I get people don't like her. I don't like her, by the way. I'm a Muslim. I'm a British Muslim. I think she's done untold damage to the British community. I think she's made life more dangerous for good, law-abiding Muslims in this country. So I have got no sympathy for her on that kind of level.
Why bring her back?
Because if people are British citizens, they should be brought back. Other countries are bringing back people from these camps. Other Western countries are bringing
Nazi war criminals were extradited from South America and brought back to Europe and brought back to Germany and put on trial.
Justice.
Yeah, and some of them were extradited to Israel
and some
they were
in jail.
executed.
Yeah.
OK. We're going to debate that. In fact, Baroness Rossi is here, and we're going to debate that with her after 7 o'clock. Just before we go, Baroness Newlove, the Victims Commissioner, who did so much for those without a voice who are victims of crime. Her own husband murdered by a gang of teenagers. She has died aged 63. She was appointed Victims Commissioner twice because she was doing such a good job. You knew her well, Aisha. Of course, she was in the House of Lords.
This is absolutely devastating news. She was such a brave and principled and determined woman. I mean, she had gone through this unspeakable tragedy with her own husband. Her entire family had been affected by it. And what was so great about Baroness Newlove is that she always spoke for the victims, and she was completely cross-party. You know, she reached out to everybody and she spoke from the heart. I mean, she was very, very good to me in the House of Lords. I interviewed her many times, and she was such a strong voice for victims.
So we send our love to her family.
63 is
yeah,
so
no
good.
age.
Young age.
No age.
Young.